Welcome back to The Genetic Genius, and I'm your host, Dr. Lulu. In this podcast, we'll be exploring the fascinating world of genetics and its impact on our health and well being. Today, we have a fantastic guest joining us, Heather Gray. Heather is a functional diagnostic nutritionist with over 27 years of experience specializing in supporting clients with chronic illnesses such as Lyme, mold, autoimmune disease, and more. Her personalized approach to functional diagnostic nutrition has helped countless clients achieve remarkable results, from reducing inflammation in the body and brain to improving gut health and overall wellness. With Heather's guidance, individuals have experienced significant weight loss, decreased pain, improved mental health, and increased energy. We're thrilled to have Heather with us today as we dive into topics surrounding chronic illness, including Lyme disease, mold toxicity, autoimmune disorders, and beyond. Her expertise and insights will provide valuable knowledge to our listeners, empowering them to take control of their health journeys. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea, and get ready to embark on a journey of discovery with us. Welcome, Heather Gray, to the Genetic Genius Podcast. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the Genetic Genius Podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you as a guest today.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Lulu. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Yay, here we are. And we're going to be talking about some amazing subjects today about chronic illness in particularly. And before we dive into that, I'd love for you to just share your personal experience with chronic illness and how it led you to specialize in supporting clients with all the things you do, like Lyme disease, mold toxicity, autoimmune disease, much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually start off the talk with telling folks I was basically born full of shit. I was a constipated 4-year-old who was sitting on the potty for so long that my feet would fall asleep. And that was the beginning of my, let's throw Band-Aids at symptoms, right? The doctors just wanted to give me stool softeners and thick, nasty oils, but nobody was trying to figure out why this 4-year-old was so constipated. Hindsight's 2020. Same year, my uncle had committed suicide. And turns out I have celiac disease. So there was a combination of some genetic stuff as well as like early childhood trauma that led me not to be able to poop. And that was a lifelong thing. And as practitioners, we know how important it is to poop. Like it's ridiculous that wasn't addressed more often when I was younger. So then heading into teenage years, a lot of childhood trauma in my family and my life, the way I grew up, very angsty, very angry young woman, and bit by a tick and developed Lyme disease. And it just went downhill from there because it was 27 years of undiagnosed Lyme disease. And by the time the whole mess was said and done, I had 3 autoimmune diseases, a couple stints in the psych ward for suicide attempts, 100 pounds overweight, mold toxicity, cavitations, parasites, heavy metals. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years, is peeling back these different layers and then going back to school to become a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified bioenergetics worker, a little bit in DNA and some advanced stuff in mold as well, just because they all have a tendency to go hand in hand. You don't ever typically just get Lyme. It's
Right.
usually Lyme and co-infections and mold and all the things. And so you can't just focus on the Lyme. You've got to look at the whole big picture. And that's typically what goes on for a lot of folks who've got these chronic illnesses.
Wow, Heather, I love your story because it really is relatable to so many patients and listeners out there who know what it feels like to be suffering from a chronic illness. And it's debilitating. And especially when you have more than one all layered on top of each other. I don't know how you were functioning.
I don't know either. I think about that quite often. I don't know. I heard another Lyme doctor, and he had Lyme, speak about it as well. And I don't know how I functioned. There's some of us that get bedbound and they're in wheelchairs. I don't understand what the difference is, but obviously I was trying to take myself out. So I wasn't completely functioning quite a bit by the medical industry. It was one of the things that I screamed at the top of my lungs after getting my diagnosis was, I told you I'm not crazy. And I get to, that's going to be the name of it. I told you I'm not crazy. The realities of Lyme disease, because all my life I was dismissed by my parents. I was dismissed by my ex-husband, dismissed by the medical model. Like I had given up looking, and then I got another really bad flare and was sick again. And it was a girlfriend of mine who pushed me to go see this next doctor in Denver. And because I was just like, why the hell do I want to continue to go see doctors? Like, they don't do anything for me and they just put me on a new prescription, or they want to cut something out. Like, why?
Oh, that's horrible. I'm sorry that you weren't appreciated and listened to fully. And I think now you, with your own particular health background, you know how important it is as functional medicine practitioners for us to listen to our clients and patients, to understand their story. And I think that's a huge part of our medicine. It's a big black hole, right? That's missing. And people, you're not the only one with that story. I would say probably 95% of my patients come in, they're like, nobody listens to me. I've tried everything. And they give me their files of labs, and they're like thousands of pages, and everything's just missed because I think they just get put into the Rolodex, so to speak, of symptoms like, yeah, this and this and this and this. We don't know what to do. So sorry.
Send them to psych.
Right.
We don't know what
Yeah.
to do with you. Send you to psych. You're a psych patient now.
Yeah.
No, I'm not crazy.
Totally. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. And also, my heart goes out to you for the years that you've gone through, but sounds like you've really moved into a place of understanding yourself better from the physical and emotional component, which is how we heal, right?
110%. I still can't get over. I just recently had a client that I had to part ways with because she was dismissing my part of the program, bringing in the emotional component. And she was poo-pooing it and saying that I don't have a problem. And I really resent you telling me that I do. And I'm like, no, I was never saying, but it's a curiosity for you to look at. You're a type A personality, high functioning, high powered woman who's got this chronic illness. Like, it's not something that just happened overnight. And if that's like the one thing I can scream from the mountaintops, like, this was a process that got put into place years before you getting bit by that tick. And see, that's the problem. Most people just assume I got bit by a tick, I got Lyme disease. They didn't realize that there was some sort of a kink in the chain of their immune system that had been going on for years before this happened. Because if that was the case, then every person that got bit by a tick would get Lyme disease. But that's not
Right.
the case. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that you talked about the emotional and the physical. You've got to address the whole person.
Yes, so true. We're not just, yeah, I think that's the other thing about traditional modern medicine, right? Is that it's compartmentalized, and we're realizing that we can't do that anymore. I know as health practitioners like yourself, we know you can compartmentalize, but I think that the larger society is realizing that, okay, I can't go see 30 doctors who aren't communicating about my health plan and communicating in a way to help me move forward. So yeah, totally agree. 100%. You have to have the whole body, holistic health.
Absolutely.
There's a reason it
100%.
has that name. Yes. So let's talk about Lyme disease. And in your experience, like, what are some of the common challenges that individuals that you're helping with let's talk about Lyme disease first. I know there's a lot of components, but what are some of those common challenges that our listeners might be tuning into? Maybe even they've been bit by a tick. Who knows? I myself have had lots of experiences with ticks myself, living in the Southeast and all over the world. So what are some of those like common challenges, but that someone might be like, ding, like that alarm bell might be going off, that they may not even know they have Lyme disease and look into, like you yourself did?
Yeah, so that's a big question. That's a big, all kinds of answers to that one. It's
Yeah, we
hard,
can take one at a time there.
right? So one of them right off the bat would be getting a proper diagnosis soon, right? Because the sooner you catch this, the easier it is to get rid of. The longer it goes in the system and it wreaks more havoc, and it's more the aftermath of Lyme than actually the Lyme itself is usually what causes the long-term effects. Getting familiar with prevention, with education, what the symptoms look like. One of them is migrating pain. There's only 7 diseases, and all the diseases that have migrating pain, and Lyme is one of them. So it's not a that's your left knee. So you're not a hypochondriac. So getting to know some of the more common symptoms like brain fog and chronic fatigue and migrating pain, brain fog. Um, so that would be one of them. Another one would be the sad part that I have a really tough time working with clients is that, especially those chronic, so they waited decades for them to get an answer. They finally got an answer, and then they wear that label like a cloak of honor, and they really connect with it, and they become the disease. And then they also stay in that victim mentality. I
Right.
was bit by a tick, so I got sick. And they don't they don't see their part in it, and they don't see, and when you're in that, to get better and stay better for life is almost damn near impossible. Like, you have to take responsibility for your life, your body, your immune system, and get rid of identifying with the disease so much. And I think I see it more in Lyme disease than when any other kind of disease is out there, because I think, one, people suffer so much, and it does take so long for them to get a diagnosis, that when they do, they're like, oh my God, I got a golden ticket. And you are not your disease. Just like I tell my trans kid, and I've seen this a lot in the LGBTQ community too, that they really have a tendency to identify with that label, that whatever have you. And it's not good, whether it's a disease or a sexuality or anything. Like, when we start to identify too much with one.
So yeah, Heather, that is such a huge piece. I love that you brought that up, the labeling specifics, because that really is a huge component of just like almost all chronic disease, especially autoimmune disease and Lyme disease. And I think that it is an identifiable aspect, because these patients have been put into a place where they're grasping for straws, like anything to try to get better. And then when they have that label come on it, like you said, it's like they feel like, this
Vindicated.
this is my moment. But it's a lot of work, like, to be able to heal yourself from a chronic disease, and then to have that label that is not always as easily removable can be really challenging for patients. So I think that's really important to bring that piece up, and that you're not the disease. It's just it's a moment of time. As I tell my patients all the time, we're just in this moment of time. Tomorrow, you could be feeling completely different either way. So don't label yourself. Let's move beyond the label and move into a place of acknowledgement. My body is being this place. This is what I'm going through right now, but how can I help myself feel better? How can I move into a new place of health?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so sad. I had a girlfriend and a client who also had Lyme, and the happiest, most loving person in the whole wide world. And every time I would see her, she always had this beautiful smile and twinkle in her eye. And then I would ask, how are you doing? And then I would watch her whole demeanor change, and she would get small and be like, oh, no, not so good. And I'm like, whoa, just seeing it in front of my eyes, how she identifies. It was just every single time I would see her, she would look great. I'd ask her how she's feeling, and then it would all fall apart. And so I have to ask her a new question next time I see her. No more, how are you feeling? But yeah, it is sad. And I think I probably fell into that too for the first 6 months. It's easy to do, but then just any other kind of grieving, a lot of cultural stuff back in the day, they take a certain amount of time and then you're done.
Yeah.
Don't want to do like any spiritual bypassing. I want you to feel your feelings and feel vindicated and feel what it feels like to wear that, but don't live there, right?
Exactly. Yes. And I think that is important part to acknowledge the piece of, oh yeah, my body, this is what we're dealing with right now. But like you said, don't live on the broken record. Don't live on the worst song of your life on repeat. Move into a new song. You don't want to be repeating that over in your mind all the time.
Absolutely.
So when we're looking at Lyme disease particularly, what are some of the ways that you break it down? So someone comes in, like you mentioned, they have had this diagnosis. So, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. What are some of the medical approaches from that functional medicine perspective that you're working with? And how does that kind of differ from the traditional medical approach?
That's easy.
I know, right? That's an easy question.
The traditional medical approach is, here's a pill. If that doesn't work, come back and we'll cut something out. So I was oh my God, decades I was sick and not pooping, not sweating, so not detoxifying. And this doctor comes along and just throws napalm at my system. I thought I was going to die. I just recently ran into this doctor. He didn't recognize me about 3 months ago. And I vacillated from wanting to hug him, because he's the reason I became a functional practitioner. He's the reason that I went the alternative way, because I knew that if I continued down his path, I'd be dead. So there was this part of me that wanted to slap the crap out of him for taking me down that path. And then another part that just wanted to hug him and say, okay, thank you for putting me on this path. So yeah, that's typical with traditional, and even a lot of the Lyme literate doctors. It makes me so sad. A lot of them are still just focused on the treatment. And that is going to be part of the book that I write too. It's stop focusing on treatment. Because for me, when the real magic happened is when I started pooping and I started sweating and I lowered my food sensitivities and got the inflammation off my system, detoxed the mold, and got rid of the infection in my jaw from cavitation surgery. So it was my mindset. This last 2 years, that's all I've done is myself out of fight or flight, because it's another thing nobody ever talked about. Nobody ever talked about that when I was 4 years old, that my uncle killed himself, or that I had horrific abuse and neglect growing up as a kid and continue to be bullied from my parents into adulthood. That has a tendency to make your nervous system a little uneasy, and you can't feel when you're in fight or flight. You can't digest either when you're in fight or flight. So it was another one. No wonder that my gut was always so jacked up. And so it was putting all those pieces together. And that's what I help do for folks, is because I found out the hard way of what it means to do things out of order, or to do things what looks like they're in order, but you're missing a piece, right? So many folks, especially with the chronic autoimmune, is that corn cross reacts like wheat. So what is a gluten-free substitution?
Corn.
Yeah.
Right.
So is rice, so is oats. Guess what? They also have their own form of gluten. So it was no wonder that even though I was on a gluten-free diet, I wasn't getting much better. And a lot of things didn't turn around with the inflammation and with the brain fog until I cut out corn and I cut out grains. And my gosh, my body came back online within 2 weeks. It was amazing. It was like,
Wow.
I can breathe.
Right. I can function.
So many people are like, I've done the GFDF thing before. And I'm like, yes, but did you go corn-free and grain-free? No, why? That's one of those missing pieces, a big missing piece. So it's like, kudos for you for even stepping out on that ledge, but you didn't have the whole picture. So it wasn't done correctly, and you didn't get the full benefits from it.
Heather, that's so important. And I really like how you mentioned like the piece of the puzzle, because I think that's what, as practitioners, we're always looking for that, diving deeper, seeing what piece of the puzzle is missing in their care. And we can see, I love how you brought up constipation, detoxing, sweating. Those are the things, those foundations that I see missing in most of my patients when they're coming in with a chronic illness. I'm like, what? You've been constipated since you were a little kid? Okay, let's look and see. Let's really look and see what's going on here. We need to get your system moving. When that everything I talked to them about it being a pipe, right? If that pipe is backed up, all that sewer is just inside your body. You're just basically a floating, walking sewage system, which is not good. Yeah, not good. Gross.
No, and that's what I love doing what I do. I love actually partnering up with doctors like yourself, because I have an online educational course that goes over these foundations of health. I'm not a doctor. I don't like to play doctor. I don't like being in that realm. I prefer to work with other doctors, clients, because they usually don't have the time, nor do they have the actually continuing education like I do in nutrition and detox and all the mindset, breath work, somatic experiencing work, right? All the things that I do to build a person's healthy foundation. And that's why I think it's such a beautiful combination when I do get partnered up with people who are already working with amazing practitioners and they just need help with this lifestyle stuff. That's really when my clients like super shine.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, that's so important that you brought that up, because it is a component that's so huge that as a naturopathic physician, I only have so much time with my patient, which I do a lot, but I don't have the time also to do all the extra training in the pieces where I'm like, okay, I can refer out for this because I'm not an expert at that. And I know that I'm not. So let me refer you out to someone who is. And I think that is a huge component of what makes my patients feel better, right? When I'm like, yeah, I'm not an expert in mental health. Please let me refer you to a counselor so that we can help walk you through some of this trauma in a way that really dives down into, because the trauma is the root. And without addressing the trauma, you're not going to get better.
Amen.
Yeah, it's the root of everything. I know that. So from the functional medicine approach, can you give us some examples of what that might look like? You mentioned the diet component. Are there like specific supplements that you find? Like just walk us through some of the other components.
So FDN's model was based on the DRESS for success model. So it's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And if you notice, supplementation is last.
That's right.
Diet being first, that's the other thing. So if you run into a functional practitioner or acupuncturist and all they do is give you $300 worth of supplements, and they're not, again, talking to you about diet and pooping and how are you sleeping and what's your stress level, like run, because you're just going to make some really expensive pee.
That's right.
right?
Exactly. Yes.
You can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. You can't
No.
exercise your way out of a bad diet. So it all starts with a diet. And a lot of it is that I typically go a paleo type diet minus food sensitivities, because I find that when you test for food sensitivities, that's just low hanging fruit. Like
Right.
people's migraines, lose weight, pain gone, like brain fog lessened with the first 2 weeks. It's amazing how much better they feel by just getting rid of that low hanging fruit with the food sensitivity.
Totally.
And then from there, Cellcore has a phenomenal 400 question intake form. And I
Wow.
usually will start with that and then Dr. Horowitz's intake form just to get a better idea of, is this Lyme? Is this mold? Is this
Right.
co-infections? Is this heavy metals? Is this parasites? Is this right? Because if a person's got the money, I would love to run those labs and actually see in black and white, but those usually cost around $2,500 altogether to
Right.
have
That's not
all
cheap
the Lyme
tests.
testing. Yeah. So I start off with those intakes forms, and I have found so much clinical correlation between them. Like, they've just been beautiful. And then they're great to continue to, like, at the 3-month mark and the 6-month mark, because a lot of times people forget how sick they were and they'll focus on like that 1 or 2 symptoms that haven't gone away. And I'm like, wait, what? You told me like these 5 things are gone, but you're worried about these 1 or 2 things that are still hanging out. Go ahead and redo the intake form and let's talk. And then they'll see like that their numbers are cut in half.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's so important. And I really like you brought that up about the piece about supplements, because they can be supplemental. That's the word,
Absolutely.
right? But they're not supposed to be the lead player in your chess game. They're not supposed to be guiding your health recovery. And I think that that's just a green allopath, right? It's just like taking a nutritional medical doctor and just saying, great, now I know these supplements and let's just have you take these instead. But they're not trained on the other pieces. Like you mentioned, diet and nutrition are so key. And paleo, 100%. I think that is a great way to really help someone with a chronic illness, like especially autoimmune disease, reducing those inflammatory foods. Oh my gosh, people don't know. Like you said, they don't realize all the pieces that have been causing them inflammation, pain, fatigue, and goes on and on.
Then they get so disconnected, because that's the other sad thing I've noticed with people with Lyme disease. They get a little PTSD when it comes to, and so anything that comes about, it's, oh my God, I'm having a Lyme flare. No, it's a cold. Oh my God, I'm having a Lyme flare. No, you ate wheat and that's inflammation on your body. So everything then becomes, so that's the beautiful part of, I hate to be so black and white, but for the first 3 months, especially when someone's working with me, like, it is a strict avoidance of those foods, because one crumb causes inflammation. And then now I can't tell. Is it Lyme, or is it a food sensitivity, or is it this, or is it that? Like, we have to take out some of the pieces in that equation to really get down to the nitty gritty. And then a person, once they get a lot of that inflammatory stuff off their body, then they get more in tune with their own body and they can tell. I haven't had a Lyme flare in 3 years. And that's the other part, is it pisses me off, is people like think that that's normal. It's just the normal part. Just so many people these days, oh, he's dementia, I'm getting Alzheimer's, and it's just a normal part of aging. Oh,
No.
that's not.
No.
And don't accept it as that. And so I haven't had a flare in 3 years. I've gotten COVID once. I've gotten the flu once. I've gotten a sinus infection once. I'm going through a divorce right now. So I'm having massive brain inflammation just from stress. But I don't have a Lyme flare, because I'm still taking care of myself to the point where I can feel the difference and I know what it is. And I'm still keeping all that other inflammatory stuff off my body to where that's not going to happen. Stressful time. I've upped my self-care. I'm still on my very clean, amazing diet. I'm still on my amazing supplements. I still am doing my breath work. So I'm not gonna be totally immune from stress. Like, this is stress. No running from it. But the things that I do, that I put in practice every single day, helps me mitigate the effects of it that much more.
Yes, so true. And I think that when we're looking at the treatment of Lyme disease, I think it's really important to look at those components and see, okay, how can I gauge that I'm getting better? Right? And looking back at a different intake form or a questionnaire or those symptoms, and having some kind of measurable aspect. And I think we don't always realize when we're in the better state unless we have the perspective, right? It's all about perspective. And I think it's really changing. We're seeing a huge shift in people's perspective of health, because they're realizing what it actually feels like to be healthy. Like, whoa, this is what it can be like. And I think there's been people in a chronic disease state, patients and clients, they don't really understand even what it is like to be well. There's been so long that they haven't felt better that they don't understand what it is. And like you said, that PTSD or that kind of like trauma kicks in. Oh my gosh, am I going to go back to that person? No, let's just move forward, continually move forward. And if you do have a quote unquote relapse, we now have the tools, right? So that toolbox is so enforced in those foundations you talked about. That's, oh yeah, great. I know I can go do an extra session of sweat, or I can do this to help my body restart again.
Absolutely. Oh man, lost that train of thought. Yeah, I said I have been dealing with a little brain fog these days. It's been fascinating because it's been so long since I've dealt with it. I was like, oh, I know what this is. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So when I was first getting better, I was out of touch with my body and what was causing certain reactions. And that was part of the somatic experiencing work that I went through. And one of them was called titrating. And it was just that of, I feel a warm sensation in my thigh, but my elbow feels close. So just saying sensations and really getting in your body and feeling it. And then over time, you're titrating. And so you're getting more in tune with your body. And then when something's out, because yeah, there's no way a couple years ago that I would have been able to figure out that what I ate last night is what is causing the constipation this morning, or causing the brain fog, or the stress from last night's. It's great being able to connect the dots for the first time.
Yeah, so key. And I think that when we're in that chronic disease state, we often tune out of our body because it's almost so painful, right? So, okay, I just have to check out. So then they have to get back in, and getting back in is like, okay, here I am. What are these things I'm experiencing? How then do I process it? Yeah, that's a huge piece that you brought up there. Thank you for bringing that up. And living in our body with a state of chronic disease is a huge journey, but we have to be present. We have to acknowledge it. We have to have the tools, the support system to move beyond it, to move through it. I guess it's a better way.
Absolutely. Yeah. The only way the only way better is through, something like that.
Yes,
the only
right.
way, yeah, you can't go around it. And no, I spent so much time out of my body. And then when I got in it, I was like, ow, like,
Right.
ow, have I always hurt like this? What is going on?
What's happening in here?
Yeah. And then it'd make you want to bounce back out again, but I'd have to stay in it. And then sometimes even getting curious, it's okay, talking to that left shoulder, like, why are you hurting right now? Type of thing. It's bizarre. And like I said, I'm loving, all the research. I'm reading The New Normal right now by Gabor Mate. Oh, geez, I just totally butchered his name. Anywho, he's a huge researcher in the trauma world. Anybody who even knows that world will know who I'm talking about. But The New Normal, and it's just fascinating to just, like I said, to see all this new research around trauma and emotions and feelings, because for the longest time, especially in this society, and especially being a woman, and men too, you can't cry, can't show emotions, especially in the workplace. Right. And as women tried to compete with men in the workplace and had to even stuff our emotions even more, right? Because guys don't show emotions, but that's a whole BS too. But it's just fascinating to see how that culturally and how it's manifesting in these autoimmune diseases and these other chronic illnesses, and the correlation between feelings and not feeling feelings, and how it correlates to disease is just fascinating.
Totally. Yes. Listeners out there, make sure you're in touch with your feelings.
Absolutely.
And if you're not, get help.
I say all the time, you got to take the time to feel to heal.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's talk about mold toxicity, because I want to make sure we talk about this. And it's a big piece of your journey. And I think a lot of listeners don't understand even like what that really means. So if we can break it down, what exactly is mold toxicity? What are some of the signs and symptoms someone might be experiencing if they have a mold toxicity going on in their body?
Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's insidious. And so it's one of the things, there's 3 questions I ask right off the bat, because they're the 3 absolute barriers to getting better. And one of them is, are you living in a moldy environment? 2, do you have cavitations? Have you had a root canal or wisdom teeth removed? And 3, have you been tested for sleep apnea, right? Because if you're not getting the right amount of oxygen at night when you sleep, all the best supplements and diet in the world are not going to do you a hill of beans of good, right? Mold. So yeah, where to start off? Certain people are more genetically predispositioned to have issues with mold. And that's why you usually see mold and Lyme hand in hand, because those same people who can't detox mold are also going to have to be the same problem, that are going to be more susceptible to Lyme and autoimmune and a bunch of other things. So I don't detox mold. I lack the genes. And so when I'm in a moldy environment, it just keeps circulating in my body, circulating in my body, circulating in my body. And I have to take binders, or I as I have to do things to actively flush this stuff out of my system. Detoxing has become my bestest friend in the whole wide world. And if I could change my name from the Lyme boss to the detox queen, like I would, because I love detoxing. But and mold will hijack your brain more than anything. I have seen and heard some scary stories from people of living in mold and like how they lost their morals. It's so disgusting. And it's insidious. It can be not seen. People can bring their stuff from one place to the new place and then re-inoculate the new place. Like it's a big conversation to have with somebody. And then, so it's a lot of detoxification. It's getting out of the environment. I used to work with a doctor, Kim Bruno, and I love her expression of people are always wanting to continue to live here and still treat. Well, sure. It's like eating Oreos and brushing your teeth at the same time. You're never going to truly get better until you're out of the offending environment. There's a couple different species out there that are a lot more toxic than others. You can't kill it with bleach. There's a lot of misnomers about mold and remediation and how to get rid of it. And it's tough. I find that sometimes people make it tougher than it needs to be. There's a couple like key steps. There's the sinuses is something that people always miss. And when I was at the Cellcore conference a week and a half ago, they were showing pictures of parasites and fungal balls that were
Ooh.
coming out of people's sinuses from using like the Navage system. So
Mm.
it's like a neti pot, but on steroids. It really gets far back, and you'll add some of their carboxy or like their paras to help bind that mold and move it on out. Because that was another one that I had a huge issue with. I was detoxing it from my body and I was doing great. And I never addressed my sinuses and forgetfulness and cognitive impairment until I started working on the sinuses, and then that got better. But anything from chronic bloody noses, autoimmune disease, pain, brain fog, asthma, a lot of correlation with asthma and allergies, leaky gut. Yeah, it can cross over and look like a lot of different things as well. That's why it can be really hard to figure out
Right.
off top. Changes in your vision, which is there's a VCS test that you can do online. It's $15 and it's a visual contrast test.
Hmm.
And so because it likes to affect your optic nerve. And when I took
Mm.
it the first time, I failed. And then after a month of detox and some silver spray and doing that other stuff up my nose, I passed it. But not everybody actually will show up on the VCS. So it's not 100% accurate, but there's not a lot of labs out there that are,
Right.
unfortunately. But yeah, so mold can be a little on the complicated, tricky side.
Totally. And what are the testing pieces of that? Can you talk us through that component?
I like using the oat test mixed with a mycotoxin test from Vibrant
Mhm.
Labs. I love they've got a combo. You can do a tick-borne 2.0 and a mycotoxin test together. And that's usually, like I said, if somebody can afford it, I love to start there because it's just a lot of times when you're asking somebody to change so much of their life, right? A lot of times they can't get that buy-in without actually seeing it on black and white paper of like,
Exactly.
this is what you got going on in your body instead of just taking my word for it. And you could save yourself so much money if you did, but they just don't get a lot of buy-in. And so I like to do those. And then, like I said, even that intake form has a mold section as well to tell me if mold is a mold a bigger player in your story, or is it just a smaller player, and how to deal.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. I like what you said too. Some people do really appreciate that quantitative piece or qualitative piece of data, right? They're like, okay, yes, I can see that. And also when we have a retest, right, you can see, like you mentioned too, testing one thing and then testing a few months later to see how your body is and if there's been a shift. And I think that it's important to test and not guess, but there is sometimes can be that financial component for people, which I use some functional medicine testing companies that do payment plans, which that can really help for clients or patients out there. So if you're listening in, there are some ways that you can do testing and not break your bank.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's called advanced care, and it's kind of like care credit. So that's the other thing that if people qualify for, then they can get on that program, and it helps it acts like a credit card with lower interest. But yeah, it can help with the cost of that. But if I have somebody who comes to me and they literally only have $2,000 to work with, I'm not going to blow that whole load on testing, because then they have nothing
Right.
over for supplements and treatment and side care stuff, trying to be cognizant of the client's situation.
Oh, totally. Yes, everybody has a health budget, which I think is really important for us to take into consideration as practitioners. And we need to be able to understand what they're going through, how, and a lot of times if they're chronically ill, they can't work or not work to a level that, is financially supporting them. So it's double-edged sword. I need to have all this care, but I don't have the finances for it because I'm so ill. So once they start moving into that place of health, sometimes that can shift for them, which is often really a great place. So, as we're wrapping up today, let's talk about gut health. You mentioned it a little bit with the piece of the Lyme disease. And how often do you see it really linked to chronic illness in your practice? And can you explain that connection between gut health and maybe conditions like Lyme disease or mold disease, autoimmune disease? I know it's connected to all of those, but how often do you see it? Like 100%?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All health starts and ends in the gut. If you've got a leaky gut, then you've also got a leaky brain, and you've got stuff that's going on in your bloodstream and crossing the blood-brain barrier that don't belong and causing an immune response. And then a lot of times that immune response, when it's happening, there's collateral damage to other organs and other tissues and other systems around what it's attacking. And then you've got, once that immune system's triggered, then you've got this cross reactivity, this molecular mimicry going on where things like corn and wheat look like the thyroid tissue, right? So now every time you're eating corn or wheat, your body's attacking its thyroid because it thinks that it's one and the same. Gut health is absolutely crucial. You've got to. And it makes me sad because there's so many people out there doing these food sensitivity testing, which is great, but that's like step one, right? Then step two is heal and seal the gut, remove
Exactly.
the offending foods. But so I like got these people, and 7 months ago they had a food sensitivity test, and they've been off the foods for 7 months, which I don't recommend. That's not the way it works.
Right.
And
No.
nobody ever talked to them about the next step of what supplements to take to heal the gut, how to rotate food, how to retest food when that 3 to 6 month mark is up. So gut health. And then if you've got an overgrowth of pathogens, right, and LPSs, which are causing all kinds of other problems. So no, absolutely, like 100% of people with chronic illness have also got some sort of a gut issue going on. They just go hand in hand.
Totally. Yes. And all health does begin and end in the gut, right? You have to address the gut, and that's so important. And I think that without healing the gut, they don't appreciate their change in health too, right? Because when we heal the gut, then you can see, oh, actually, like you said, pooping, eating, digesting, absorbing the supplements you might be taking, absorbing the food that you're eating that's actually nourishing your body, giving your brain fuel, energy, all of that great stuff that really helps when we heal the gut. So I agree 100%.
Oh my God. For the longest time, like anytime I ate anything, I always told people I felt like Violet off of Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. I would just bloat up, bloat. And then I was always waiting for an Oompa Loompa to come jumping out and roll me away. And it would, because it's painful. It's painful to bloat like that after every meal. And then you start to get weird relationship with food because you feel like nothing that you eat, everything. Turns out that was blastocystis hominis. So I had another little parasite that's very common with people with pets.
Yeah.
So it's all of it is, I think that's the part about just traditional Western medicine model, is that they're looking at the thing that hurts, the thing that's dysfunctioning, and they're not looking downstream or what else that it could be possibly related to. And that's why a lot of the functional, more holistic practitioners, or if they don't, they refer out to someone who does. They have a team, because that's even better.
Yeah. Team is great because we can really address the whole aspect of the body from the holistic model, right? The mental health component, the nutritional component, maybe the diagnostic component, all those pieces. And I think that's a model that we're going to see formulating and really starting to get its roots in the ground as we move forward in healthcare. Okay, great. Let's have a health center, not
That's
a disease center, but a health center. Right?
That's part of the reason why I keep networking and keep doing stuff like this, is because I'm still trying to find my group of docs that get what I do and see the value in what I do. And so that we can play together, because I really feel like that's where the gold lies.
Yes, the gold, the nuggets. Heather, tell us about your book, The Needs Gap, How to Support the Needs of the Autoimmune Body, including Recovery Protocol. Tell us about that particular, and you were a co-writer in that. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's awesome. Tell us about that book.
Do I have to? No. It was scammy.
It was kind of scammy.
I got duped a little bit.
Oh no, oops.
Yeah, and paying way too much money for this chapter in this book. And then to find out that like the other people that are in that book as well, like we don't have similar views at all.
Oh
It was funny.
no.
So there was a recipe section at the end, and the originator of the book had this grain laden recipe, and I thought my head was going to freaking explode. I'm like, this is a book on autoimmune disease and pain, and you put in a recipe loaded with grains. I'm like, what are you
What are
doing?
you doing? Yeah.
And that was just the first of many. That was the only thing I actually brought up, and she did change her recipe, but there was a lot of little things like that makes my
Flags.
so I have a hard time recommending that book, or if I do,
Oops.
I just say read my chapter,
Yes.
because otherwise you're going to stay sick, because a lot of these folks, it's old,
Mm.
outdated information. I'm not trying to be arrogant in any way, shape, or form, but I have found out the hard way. Like everything
Right.
I've learned has been through the hard way. And yeah, and a lot of these folks don't have the personal experience. They just have the book experience of their education. Yeah, so I don't really talk about that book. That's why I need to get my book out.
Yes. Okay. So your book, we'll have to have you back on when your book comes out. It sounds like that's going to be amazing. And I think contributing and writing to a book gives us an experience, right? Now you have the experience. You're like, okay, now I don't want to do that, but now you know what you do want, right? You're like, okay, great.
And I can say I'm a published author, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And your next book or book series, I think it'd be great to have a series about Lyme disease, because you have lots of components about that. And, or maybe you have Lyme and mold and different components in a series. Because I think from personal experience, when you have a large book, it can be hard for people to digest. So little small mini ones are like, oh yeah, I can read that. And then like move on to the next one, and increases your reading. People will enjoy that. Little small tips.
That's
And take a little antidote. Okay, let's tell us about how people can find you, your awesome website, and you have a cool freebie. So tell us about that and the places we can find you on social media, Facebook, Instagram, follow you, stalk you, all that good stuff.
The Lyme Boss is everywhere. That's how you find me across the board, even
Nice.
on the website. So it's thelymeboss.com. Lyme, not Lime. My autocorrect still hasn't figured that one out. I'm like, it is never going to be Lyme, not Lime. I'm like, figure this out. But the freebie was fun. I love cooking. People all the time, when I tell that I'm paleo, and they're like, what do you eat? And I'm like, here, let me show you these beautiful, delicious, easy, right, meals that I make under 20 minutes or less, because I had so many folks that, again, they're so disconnected with food and how it reacts in their body, and they've spent no time in the kitchen. There is apps out now called SOS. It's a inflammatory seed app that you can look at to find out if there's a restaurant near you that doesn't use inflammatory seed oils. And guess what I found? Nothing around me. So that means every single restaurant that I would choose to eat at has got inflammatory seed oils.
Oh
and
no.
Our membrane, our cell membrane, needs that healthy fat. And if you're giving it subpar crap to make new stuff with, you're going to get subpar crap new stuff. And then it's just going to keep degrading and getting worse. You've got to stay away from those freaking inflammatory seed oils. And then you run the risk of higher cross contamination, which then causes inflammation. So there's a whole host of reasons not to eat out and to learn how to start cooking from home. And that's why I made this video series, was to show you, and then also educate you along the lines of why you should be focused on the type of cookware you're using, because it makes a difference. Why do you choose grass-fed beef over confinement beef? Why do you choose pasture-raised eggs over store-bought eggs? All the little nuances that come along with it too, because again, you might have a beautiful frame, but you're missing a piece, right? And so I want to add all those pieces to it. I love the cooking series.
Yay. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So that's on your website at the lymeboss.com. People can find it there. And then they can find you all over social media. It sounds like at the Lyme Boss. So that's great. That's super easy. We'll put, of course, all that in the show notes for our listeners to be able to find you easily. And one last question as we're wrapping up, Heather, if you had an unlimited budget, what would you do right now to make the biggest impact on the planet?
I would write that book. And I would push it hardcore, and I would get a book series or a speaking tour and the whole 9 yards, because I think awareness. So it was funny when I was at this Cellcore conference again, so many brilliant practitioners would just touch on those foundations of health and then go on to their awesome, amazing protocols. And I was like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring that next year I want to be that person who talks about the foundations. I just don't think enough attention they'll say it in passing and then they'll
Right.
gloss over it and move on. And so I want to be that person that really says, no, do not pass go, do not collect $200, build your foundation.
That's right. Your house cannot live on 3 legs alone. You have to have 4 or more to create those pillars of health. Oh, Heather, that's great. That's a really good one. And I can't wait to see your book when it comes out. So kudos to that. Thanks again for joining us today, Heather. I loved our conversation about Lyme disease, mold toxicity, and hearing your story. It was just so heartfelt and really relatable.